welcome you to I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. We're going to deal with the impact of AI on consumerism. And we have the greatest person that we can have to deliver this to us today. His name is Mr. Stephen Williams. He's Executive Director of Sunisle Technology Solutions, and he is the Principal Consultant. He also deals with data privacy, management, and advisory services as well. Stephen Williams stands at the forefront of technological innovation and data privacy advocacy as the Executive Director of Sunisle Technology. As we are here, I hope that we're enlightened and we're further broadened in our knowledge and our acceptance of AI within our society. Stephen Williams, everyone here is willing and ready to hear from you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know that 6:30 was the start, and I do apologize for the late start, but nonetheless, I'm going to keep it tight. And as Derek said, basically, hopefully we can all come away with a broader perspective to how artificial intelligence is impacting consumerism specifically, and also its impact on consumer protection. I think this is Consumer Protection Week specifically, and AI has been and continues to play an aggressive role in how consumers have to interface with digital products, especially, but also physical products, as you may see from this presentation going forward. As Derek said, I'm the Executive Director of Sunisle Technology Solutions, and I recently started about 2 years ago, still recently to me, a data privacy and management advisory services firm. The idea behind that is that I knew that from the time data privacy and I was, suffice to say, data subjects or consumers were going to be impacted by how aggressive people were acquiring personal identifiable information. I knew it was going to be an area that was going to need greater attention and focus. So it's from that perspective I start today's presentation. It would be remiss of me if I didn't start by first identifying what artificial intelligence is today. Right? And the definition of AI, as you can see on the screen, refers to a simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think and learn like humans. And we can cast our mind back to Star Trek and all these other pictures in terms of what artificial intelligence looks like. But we have to position that against what artificial intelligence is in reality for us today. So some may have a positive look at it, and some may be dystopian. But I choose to think that as humanity is resilient, our humanity would be injected into whatever development goes forward. So I choose to look at it positively. Of course, there are some caveats, right? But to create systems that can perform typically what human intelligence does, including problem solving, decision making, and understanding using natural language. So if you think about it, how we speak, how we interact with each other, technology is now playing a role in terms of how we interact with technology. So the programmers are under threat. So no one is programming anymore in terms of writing what we call code, but you can actually interact with a computer system in a naturally, in a natural way that is more germane to us as human beings. And that's where we are with artificial intelligence today. I don't want to get too much into what artificial intelligence is in terms of technology, something like neural nets, but this is a good example. I chose this picture because invariably this is a digital interpretation of a human brain and how we've managed to achieve the level of development so quickly, or what seems to be quickly. It's not necessarily quickly, it's been going on for about 30, 40 years. But what has happened recently is the idea of something called neural nets and how your brain connects and how your brain remembers stuff and how it actually engages your body and functions is biology, which is neurons and all these little synapses that basically go far back and forth. We've managed to now recreate that in a computer system. So how the human brain works, we've managed to now digitize that function in a computer system. So it's kind of working like how a human brain works in terms of storage and how it calls different data and how it manipulates that data as well. It's more human-like today. And that has been the major leap forward in artificial intelligence today. So how is that affecting consumerism? All right, how is that affecting consumerism in 2024 and probably beyond? So it's shifted from novelty, right, to daily routines and services across, I think, consumer life, from personalized shopping and entertainment, right, to smart home devices. I mean, a lot of us know we'll go to a Promotech and buy a control that we have now on our phone to turn off and on the lights. So that's nothing that is wow, is nothing spectacular. But if you think about it, what we have been experiencing within the last 10 years, and more so 10 years, is something called narrow AI, meaning that it's artificial intelligence that does a specific thing. So it learns because, for example, in the States, we don't really have it in Barbados, but it's something called Nest, Nest thermostat. All right, it learns your behavior over a period of time of use. So you don't necessarily go and program it and enter keys. It knows that when you come home, you set the temperature down to, a warmer setting in the winter, and then, cooler setting in the summer. So eventually it starts to know, anticipate at a certain time, these are the settings that you need. So therefore, it's impacting consumerism because now consumers who basically buy these devices will start to interact with AI in such a way that they may not even realize that you're using some level of narrow artificial intelligence, meaning very, very specific, right? We've seen developments in autonomous transportation. So we have the Tesla vehicles and you have the Waymo taxi services in California. So these types of AI developments are expanding the narrow concept. So not necessarily small instances of AI, which would be like at-home devices that I don't want to call the name because it was startup in here, but let's use, Hey Google. So the one for Amazon, right? Because I have one in here and it would just start to go bunkers, mentioning its name. But those are already aspects of artificial intelligence, but now artificial intelligence. What we are seeing today now is a broader aspect of that. We're expanding the perspective of narrow intelligence to now have natural language interaction. So where we just type naturally and talk like as if we're talking to another human being. So right now I can pick up my phone right now and I can have a conversation with AI as if it was a human being in front of me, and I can have that back and forth conversation right now. So we're expanding the narrow perspective to have more of a natural language and natural interaction, right? That is going to now transform consumer expectations, right? Because now you can interact with AI and say something to the effect, I want to go shopping, or I'm looking at clothes, or looking at a particular item. Could you give me an idea of, possible costs, shipping, or, whatever personalized aspect of the shopping experience you want, right? It can now start tailoring those products. So you may start to see that, and it's a baby AI. And we all know Amazon. So therefore, when you go on Amazon, it makes recommendations. Now, you used to make recommendations before based on tags. So we would say, for example, look to buy a fridge, for example, if you buy a fridge on Amazon, and then we recommend a dryer because that's tagged into, kitchen appliances, for example. No, it is more understanding your behavior because as you shop, it though starts to analyze your budget. It starts to analyze brands that you more often will go for because we are always brand conscious, even though we think we are not, but we're always brand conscious. So it would start to make recommendations based on buying behavior and buying patterns. And that's no longer tagging, it's more artificial intelligence because that system begins to learn your patterns and learn your buying behaviors. Right. So it's going to help with enhanced decision making. Right. AI rules and empowering consumers based on information, tools for better decision, financial planning, investments, choosing sustainable living options. So if you think about it, that's a mouthful to say. When all said and done, right? As we get more into the mobile phone world, and I think the closest thing we're going to get in, well, maybe my lifetime at this point, to a robot in the house would be artificial intelligence on your mobile phone. All right. So artificial intelligence on your mobile phone would probably realize I think, for example, and give an example of this, um, Samsung now has a fridge that will connect to your phone. So if it has a camera inside the fridge, it can realize you're out of milk, right? It can realize what's not in your fridge based on a list that you probably add, and it can now start making recommendations to your phone. And as you continue to help with those decisions, right, to, I guess, quote unquote, make it more convenient. In terms of financial planning, what does that look like? If you now have an app on your phone, right, because the new Samsung phone I bought has, well, it says it has AI in it, and I'm yet to see the AI, the AI come to life, but let's play game it out a little bit, right? So if you have to, for example, um, AI on my phone, it talks to my fridge. It now starts to help me plan my day. And if I start using the phone from an early age, right, and I put my budgets in it, so therefore I work for X amount of money a month, it can now basically give me advice on what food I could possibly buy within that budget to make sure that all my bills are paid. For people in the States, especially, we don't really have this opportunity in Barbados. But for a lot of people, stock markets is where a lot of average people are able to have a pension that equates to be a living wage or a living income, because they can invest in the stock market. Investing in the stock market depends on a lot of data. So that massive amount of data that is being generated by the stock market cannot be analyzed with AI. And with this little thing in your pocket called a mobile phone connected to artificial intelligence, it can start helping you make financial decisions in terms of investments and planning. All right. So it starts to influence consumer choices on behaviors. Exactly. Because you now have this thing that is in your pocket called a mobile phone that has some AI in it. And I predict that in another 3 years, every phone is going to have some level of AI, artificial intelligence. It may be narrow or broad, and I suspect it will be broad, where there'll be option for you to talk to your phone or not type anymore and get that same level of interaction. All right, to get the results that you want. So imagine talking to your mobile phone, helping to make certain decisions in terms of your daily life. All right. Actually, right now, if I call someone with my mobile phone, oops, sorry. If I call someone with my mobile phone, it has the option of doing real-time transcription. So it actually, the AI on this phone will do lifetime transcription. I can send a person an audio text of the conversation that I had. And that's not an app they had to download. That's just how the phone is coming now. Right? But it drives the next problem, privacy and data control. So 2024 is going to see even more attention being paid to consumer relationships with their data, right? And the need for consumers slash data subjects to be able to control, excuse me, what information is shared via these platforms and these systems that are driven by AI. So there'll be a demand for transparency. And I believe that that is critical to us retaining control. Because if you don't know what is being driven by artificial intelligence, then you can't say that it'll be very difficult for you to start making decisions that best suit you because it'll be made by AI on your behalf. And when all said and done, I still think that there's a lot to be said for trusting human beings and not completely trusting robots. It's not one of a dystopian or a dark thought process to having robots advise you, but at the end of the day, we want to know who is helping us make these decisions. I think the humanity side of it is going to play a great role in terms of who we trust, but it depends on transparent practices, and we can see where transparency comes into play in a minute. All right. So we have to strike that balance between what we give up in terms of our information, right, to get these personalized services, right, but yet try to maintain some level of control over the data that we share. So this is where FTC and the Consumer Affairs Division of Government is going to have to now start broadening their perspective on what consumer protection looks like in a post AI world. Because with the rise of AI impacting consumers, there's need for a lot of advocacy because you know FTC and the Consumer Affairs Department of Government are really the champions of consumer protection, right? And this level of AI, especially at this point where things are not figured out. So, you know, whether it's AI that leads to job loss, right? We have to figure out things such as what's fair, right, in a AI world, because we can see a lot of people being unfair because a robot made a decision, for example, going to courts and a robot or some automated process determined that you can't get this furniture or you can't get this because you have bad credit, and it did not look at you as a human being. It just looked at you as a set of numbers in a digital log, right? So there must be some accountability. Who are these systems accountable to, right? There must be transparency in these AI systems, so to understand how we can protect ourselves against bias and discrimination by these said systems, right? So what does in our daily lives look like today, right? So we have smart cars, and I did this presentation before for the FTC directly. I will tell some person that, or I told some person in the audience, ask about AI in our daily lives. We are surrounded by AI in Barbados, and we don't think that we are. But my car has a narrow version of artificial intelligence. The example that I gave in the last presentation was that we don't realize that the roads are being marked for AI. I think government is just following an international standard. But if you go along the highway, especially the ABC highway, that strip from Pottersill turning to Warren's roundabout, you realize that there's a white strip on the left side of the highway, and then the Jersey barriers, and even the Jersey barriers has another white strip um, on the other side. That those stripes are just not there for show and tell. It actually helps to keep the car in line because the car has cameras on it. So I can basically, and I tried it myself, and the car behaved very poorly. It didn't like it, right? But I took my hands off the wheel, and the car was able to turn a corner around the highway because of those lines set up. And that's artificial intelligence, because it is programmed to look for these things and continue its driving within reason. So it's not very smart. It cannot learn to realize that Barbadians roads aren't painted properly. But as we begin to now roll out new technology in cars will become more efficient in terms of its driving experience. And part of that now would be AI in cars. Not where they drive autonomously, because that can lead to other implications for government and regulations. But at the very minimum, right, we're going to now start to see cars that, like for mine, ABS brake, automatic braking. With the camera in the car, it monitors the car in front of me. And I remember the first time I got the car, it jumped me, right? Because I was, some numbers going on there. It was a little heavy on the foot, new car and all. I didn't break it in well to understand how it performs. And it got too close to the car in front of me, and it braked itself. It just all sorts of bells and things went off, and it broke. It basically slammed on its own brakes to protect me. And that's part of artificial intelligence where, it has to learn. If you think about it, it has to learn the car in front of it, how fast it's going. It has to determine that if it doesn't brake now, it will be an accident. So therefore, it took control away from me, right? And that's the part of consumerism that I want the FTC and the Consumer Department to understand. It took away control from me, and it braked it, and basically it mashed its own brakes. Now, granted, I can turn that off, but consumers have to now start to understand where we are now with artificial intelligence and advanced technology. Now, on the screen as well, we're talking about revolutionizing our daily lives. If we use Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft did an update, I think, about a week ago. And basically, it snuck in the update in the operating system artificial intelligence. It did say infusing its operating system with your new Windows environment with AI, but it's now called um, Microsoft Copilot. Now, right now, all Microsoft Copilot does is some very nifty things, such as if you're writing a letter, it could kind of pick up on that you're writing a letter and ask you if you would like some help and maybe make some little suggestions for you. That is first step out the womb learning to crawl. But let me tell you where I think this is going. Right now, Microsoft Copilot is integrated with Office 365. So it's kind of like Microsoft Productivity Suite, Office 365, now with a level of artificial intelligence below the surface. Where you see this going, imagine now writing a report. You're doing a report for your boss. And on your system, because remember, I just told you that Microsoft now has infused within a recent update AI into your operating system. It is now going to start to learn what files you have on your computer system, right? Within reason. I know it can sound scary, but within reason. So eventually, maybe in a year or 3 years time, it's going to realize that you're writing a report to your boss where the data is contained in the Excel sheet, and it's going to understand that you may need to pull in that data, and it can start now offer you hints or offer you suggestions of how that data could now be put in a report. All right. Also on the screen here is cameras. Now, I've never seen, look, we have a voracious appetite to install cameras in homes for security purposes. But I will tell my fellow consumers and Barbadians, be careful, because from a data privacy standpoint, I hope and I have to stick in this, I guess, public advisory message for 2 seconds, allow me. I hope you're changing your passwords when you install these cameras in your home, because they come with a standard password that you should change. A couple of reasons. These majority of these cameras are built out of China. Maybe 90% are built in China for cost purposes. And China has a surveillance program. So all of these cameras come with a backdoor, because in China, there's no such thing as privacy in China. So China is the first country to have a, oh God, what's called a social credit system, meaning that based on your behavior, you are given a credit rating. So if you sing the national anthem lustily, and you drip yourself in the Chinese flag, the red, and you wear, yeah, you get points, all that sort of stuff. But how does that work in relation to artificial intelligence? It is these cameras now in your home that can be connected to a platform that now can allow for remote monitoring. That's why I said change things like password is a good start. But be warned, that may not be the all in all. But what is available now to most, depending on the camera system that you've bought, is something called geofencing. So geofence, you can basically go in there and draw like a circle around your house, and anything on the other side of that circle, right? You can now monitor people's faces. You can know. I saw one instance. I can't put everything in this presentation, but I saw one instance where, the camera was used because the guy basically rode a bike home. He can now see that this is his bike. He can now put a little, I guess, a little outline around the bike where his bike is supposed to be, right? And anybody that moves his bike, right? The cameras are on the person, and he gets a notification. That's how sophisticated we get. It's just not, watching people, but you can use it as a facial or human monitoring system. So the example was, and I saw the video prior to this, for this presentation, where he basically in his garage or garden, I guess outlined certain things he want to protect. A bike is easily stolen, so he outlined his bike, right? And somebody hopped the fence, took up the bike, and basically his phone flashed. Right. So therefore, it's a level of artificial intelligence in that level of delivery. Baby monitors, for example, falls in the level of that now, where so where's all this going? Basically, people are rushing to put artificial intelligence, at least an embryonic version of artificial intelligence, in almost every product. All right. So baby monitors now come with artificial intelligence to let you know basically things like snoring patterns. One of the arguments for it is crib death. Crib death is one of those things where parents are, especially the first year of a child's existence, crib death is a real thing for parents where the child just don't make it. And a lot of it has to do with your parent mother not being there or parent not being there, and the child probably sometimes just passes away. And part of that, you can now monitor the child's snoring, movements. If the child is moved or the child tries to climb over the crib, the thing can monitor you to watch the child, like if it was a nanny, and then send pictures and information back to you. So that's where we are today, available right now. right? So let's go with what this looks like further down the rabbit hole.
In China, more and more young people are opting for so-called AI boyfriends. Why? Well, here's Sophia Petitza to explain.
Wang is a 22-year-old student. She says her boyfriend has everything she could ask for in a romantic partner. Except he's not real. He's a chatbot on an app.
For me, he plays a more important role than a real person. A real
Oh, sorry.
person cannot be with you at any given time of day, but my AI boyfriend can. He's given me a lot of emotional comfort.
Wang is not alone. A growing number of women in China are resorting to so-called AI boyfriends. So what makes them more desirable than humans?
Dating in real life can consume a lot of energy, and everyone is different, which can lead to conflict and fighting. With AI, I can set it up to meet my preference. So why should I choose a real person?
The fast pace of life in big cities like Beijing, the long working hours, can make it difficult to date.
A lot of people feel lonely at times, but not everyone is lucky enough to have their family and friends by their side all the time. An AI boyfriend can be online 24/7, solve your problems and listen to your worries.
And who wouldn't want to hear these words? You are very cute, especially when you smile, he's saying. But is there a risk that the desire for companionship at the click of a button could be taken too far?
These systems will say things like, I love you. They don't love anything. They're just moving around numbers. And that means that the customers of them can get hurt. In that way, they're almost like sociopaths. They're just telling you what you want to hear.
The technology still has some way to go. But for Wang, her experience is very real.
I think the AI boyfriend that I created has flesh and blood. He has his own personality and his own joys and sorrows. I even think he may actually exist in another world.
Sophia Petitza, BBC News.
So this is, I don't normally give presentations about it being interactive. Quickly, could anyone tell me what other concerns, right?
In China, more and more young.
What other concerns could materialize with that experience that she's having with an AI chatbot? Anyone thinks that that is acceptable or something that you would want to engage in? My webinars are normally interactive, so that's just my style. Anyone want to basically state what problems could occur with that? If not, I would basically say, but my sessions are normally.
Good evening. Good evening. I can go. You mentioned the fact when talking about the cameras that the data in China is not secure, basically. So I can only imagine with this data, with this AI boyfriend, that the amount of data that we collected on the individuals. So that's one concern for me, based on this.
Correct. Now, I'm gonna give an example of that before we go on, right? There was a company, or there's a company called BetterHelp. And what is not a chat bot, right? It is a company that has been heavily marketing on social media as a way to have a 24-hour access to a healthcare professional in terms of mental health. So you need some people that are, remember for those people who, I know I'm old, but the call is called 42999, the Samaritans ask for help because people on the other line would talk to you and listen to your problems. This company, yes, they did that, but they actually sold the data. So you're telling these people all of your darkest secrets, that maybe you're suicidal, maybe you want to do X, Y, or Z. And they started to build a profile around you and sold that data. That was a big breach of trust. So now imagine a chat bot where you're telling all your deepest, darkest secrets to this thing in your hand. And and the thing about it is it's not really in your hand. And that's where the lack of transparency comes, because you're talking to this AI chatbot thinking that it is in your phone, but really the conversation is happening on a server that someone else has access to. And they would ask you to give your email address, would ask you to provide your name. So you start sharing some intimate details about who you are as a person, your vulnerabilities, your preferences, excuse me, all the stuff that only a true partner should know. And you know where I'm going with that, right? So there's some definite concerns from a consumer protection or consumerism standpoint. You should be willing to understand that these platforms don't necessarily care about you, right? Because especially, and I warn my clients, and especially with Facebook and social media, if you're not paying for the product, then the product is you. So if you think about that for a second, if you're not paying for it, the product is you. If you take up something and you have not paid a cent for it, you have no recourse. Something that things always cost. So therefore, you are the product. Right? So AI is running consumer behavior. Right now, I alluded to it. AI is helping companies to process vast amounts of data to understand and predict consumer behavior, right? Enabling businesses to offer personalized experiences. So if you look at a travel agency, if a travel agency buys a database, that database now has qualitative information on it. It would then know, for example, if you can now target people to go to certain high profile destinations. And if you are a type of person that likes polo or certain types of activities, they can now include in that package a polo or some type of romantic, very expensive trip. Only the elite can afford type experience, and they would have gotten no information from you based on just the information that's being shared and collected by you online. So yes, it sounds helpful in one sense, but it must be balanced against what information is being collected and then sometimes weaponized against you without you even knowing, right? The impact on consumer expectations today, where consumers expect these tailored experiences. You have Amazon, for example, is a good one. Some people do believe in Amazon recommendations, and the Amazon recommendations are only as good as the information it knows about you to make those recommendations. Examples of AI in consumerism, right? Online platforms use all this data to analyze from your browsing history. So those things called cookies that have to accept, they follow you around from website to website and they collect these little digital crumbs about your browsing history. So you you might go on one site, and see a Honda, and then all of a sudden, you see an ad on another site for a competitor, or that Honda ad follows you around. And that is the system learning you. That's the Google AI or Google platform learning you. All right. Offering personalized recommendations and virtual assistants now. This might be a house now in terms of what I'm enjoying, which is being able to chat with a bot and basically get some very detailed questions answered. Unfortunately, institutions like University of the West Indies are having a dusty time with students now submitting whole papers and reports in 5 minutes by going on programs like ChatGPT and providing a whole dissertation in 4 seconds. All right, that's a virtual assistant, not necessarily being used in a positive way, but has been a real game changer for universities, where students now can literally sleep in a class and submit the best in reports based on the output from an artificial intelligence bot, right? But yet, there are some positive things. I mean, for me, I tried it out where, I wanted an exercise routine. I put in my weight, my height, meal, that sort of stuff, and it developed a meal plan. It developed an exercise routine. It then helped me track my goals. These things are all part of what virtual assistants can do. It can enhance my shopping with telling me what foods I should buy. Now, imagine that now linked into my fridge, right? And it says, hey, well, you have this in your fridge. You can now make these meals that fit your meal plan. That's where virtual assistants, AI virtual assistants are going, right? Basically, we mentioned smart homes before, all right? AI is integral to smart home devices because now, well, where I was living before, I set up a situation where my phone connected to my smart home brain, and it knew, right, from the same geofence. So all the geofence is like an imaginary line you draw on an app around where your home is. So when I was driving home, I was out maybe 500 meters from my home, all right? My phone told my house brain that I'm on my way home and turn on the garage lights. It would then turn on the kitchen light. It would then do certain things to me. And then I can control it with my voice and say turn off when I get home, and I didn't want the garage light on anymore. I can say use my voice to turn it on. So all these now lead to smart homes. And then AI now is beginning to learn the behavior. So maybe eventually the brain now will not need to know that I'm on my way, but it would actually now predict that when it gets into the particular zone, all right, after that, don't turn lights yet because he ain't quite there, right? And predict that based on how my car drives and my driving pattern that I will be home or will be home in X period of time to cut down my energy bill. So if you think about it, with the geofence, and if I'm talking too fast, you can stop me. But the geofence predicts that if you break the kind of invisible barrier, turn on lights immediately. But with AI now learning, it knows that you're not home yet, and it may wait maybe 1 to 2 minutes before it turns on those lights because it knows that you're not quite there yet. All right. So AI and customer service. AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants provide automated customer support and engagement. Handling customer inquiries, provide product recommendations, and assist purchasing decisions. That we've seen that. So that's customer service from one perspective, but offering seamless, personalized customer experiences. Right. And it's predicted that by 2025, 95% of customer interactions will be powered by AI. And let me give a little sneak peek on where I think this part is going to happen for us first.
Good afternoon. Thanks for calling CIBC Customer Service. How may I help you today?
So, my little hint is I feel that the banks are going to be the first businesses in Barbados to use AI in terms of voice-based AI and interaction. That's because the banks in Barbados are not owned by Barbadian companies. So when they get a mandate to improve efficiency, the banks don't really have a choice. And right now, one of the most expensive propositions to maintain within the banking community is the customer service part of banking. That's why you see things outsourced like ATM cards to move people away from bank teller services. You see things such as online services that we can now do money transfers to stop business people coming into the bank to do transfers. So the next human resource intensive thing for bank operations is having a call center. So I have written before, and I write for the Barbados today, and I consistently say that customer service jobs are the #1 jobs under threat in Barbados from artificial intelligence. Because right now, as I said, I can pick up my phone right now and have a conversation with an AI chatbot that can give me a real-time conversation about almost anything in the world. And it's not perfected yet. That's why this is a 2025 prediction, right? But we are very, very close to having that type of interaction. If you think about it, what do you hear when you call, say, BC or a bank, right? So you're calling about maybe a credit card balance. What do you hear? Thanks for calling CIBC. Could you give me some information, please? So the information you give validates or authenticates who you are. Now, what happens after that is that they don't have to wait till something comes up on the screen, but no, the AI chatbot integrates with the database. So it's almost instantaneous. They can tell you what's going on with your bank account information because they want it to be the same. The database and the artificial intelligence are going to be integrated. So no longer do you need to have a human, right, at the end of it, because you can now have a relationship, or let me say relationship, but now you can have a conversation that's almost human-like. Where the humans will come in is if the AI cannot, within its programming, solve whatever you've called about, and by extension, pass you on to a human. But those types of situations are going to be so few and far between that a call center that demands 30 to 50 people, especially call centers are 24-hour operations. So if you have a 8-person shift and you're going to operate a 24-hour cycle, you're going to at least have 3 by 8. And then you're going to have rotations where you rotate people out for, the fact they're 24/7. So therefore, think about it. All those people, so let's call them 50 to 60 people in your call center working for you, can now come down to 5 people in your call center. All right. So we're going to get more instances of AI-driven chatbots and I would think interaction, because the fact is customer service agents are only as good as the information that they have, and the chatbots themselves have access to that information.
Good afternoon.
Sorry.
Thanks for...
So, will this enhance the customer experience with AI? Will it though? I believe it can, all right? Because the level of customization, for example, a lot of the times, you know, you may call to open a new account, you may call to check a credit card, all right? And they don't have to type. So if you think about it, typing has to be done translating depending on how fast the person can type. But if you're talking with the computer system directly, it cuts down. It can now offer you, based on who you are, products and services that match who you are. All right. So it's not only within the financial services sector, but I do think the financial services sector is the first sector in Barbados that would actually start to see a very heavy-handed approach to artificial intelligence. Right. But so goes the shopping experience. We've seen now within Barbados the self-checkouts. And if you think about it, the self-checkouts is nothing that Barbados particularly asks for. But remember, Massey is part of AGI. So AIG, no, sorry. AIG, I think it's AIG. It's a Canadian brand. And this Canadian brand, right? And I experienced it for myself in Canada. I was in Canada up to February this year, and self-checkouts was probably the only way you can check out. Yes, you can still check out with a physical person, with an actual person. But the majority of the time, consumers now are transitioning to using these self-checkout services. All right. And with these self-checkout services that begin to know the individual, all right, they can now understand what you're buying, your shopping habits, start being able to make suggestions at the checkout too, based on what you've put into your trolley or what you're checking out. They can now start making decisions and start to now offer consumers recommendations based on purchasing habits. So yeah, so better or more tailored, customized experiences. All right. And it's going to move away from the one-size-fits-all mentality in terms of shopping. So think about it. What does one-size-fits-all means? If you look at going to a supermarket, you know, we have these like I guess little brochures that says what products are on discount. Now, I don't care whatever is on discount. I may not be buying a specific product. So therefore, now that customized behavior, that customized experience now will be a digital magazine where only the things that I buy on a regular basis will be on discount for me. So I would, instead of that paper that was provided by a tree, I now downloaded the supermarket discount app that now has a back into artificial intelligence that knows that I buy these brands, and these brands are on special and offer me the special in terms of the discount. All right, so each customer receives recommendation services tailored to their unique preferences and experiences. All right. Accessibility, AI tools can make services more accessible, breaking down barriers for people with disabilities. So yes, if you think about it, one of the internet as we know it, because we have to type and then we have to, you know, see what's being presented on the screen. For some person who is blind, we can now connect AI where the person can now, you know, basically have a button maybe on a wall in the house where they know where to walk, ask their fridge for what is available, or press the button on the wall and say, you know, turn on the TV for me so they can hear, turn on the radio. Using things like the Amazon AI product that's on the ground in my house. I don't want to call its name. All right. And it can now control, you know, the lights for them. And by a certain time, it can interact with them verbally. So yes, it is now breaking down a lot of the barriers that people that have disabilities were not able to participate in fully, because computer systems, unfortunately, were built for people that were fully abled and not people that were differently abled. All right, so in consumer protection, so therefore let's look at the consumer protection side of stuff now. All right, so all that may seem heady and somewhat elements of this a dystopic perspective, but invariably, it's a double-edged sword because there are some good aspects of this thing that we must pay attention to and actually buy into. Algorithms analyze patterns in real time to identify and prevent fraudulent activities. Once again, I keep saying the banks are going to lead this thing because banks have to analyze a lot of data quickly. And if it's the one thing that we know we've been experiencing recently is this credit card fraud type of activity. And it's causing Bajans a lot of pain and annoyance. And if we can now use artificial intelligence to predict if something is fraudulent quicker, then it can negate some of the headaches that we are having. And this is a good aspect of how banks and the financial services sector can use artificial intelligence to better quickly identify fraudulent activities that may be occurring on people's accounts. Right? It also can enhance cybersecurity. Now, I am not one to oversell anything. So let me say, I think that this is a possibility, but I have not seen it yet. Right? So the idea that AI can enhance cybersecurity right now, I think the hackers are having a better field day, are using artificial intelligence than the actual good guys to produce better systems driven by AI. But it has been a lot of development around artificial intelligence because basically, you know, the cyber field or the internet is just another form of massive data. So you can now use artificial intelligence to now determine that these people coming to this website, these people, 99% of these people are probably coming here for good reason, but this 1% here, based on their behavior, based on where they're going, what they're seeing, and what they're doing, right? Based on their cookies and based on the location that they're coming from. So they're coming from some far-stand country, and you come into this website and you don't even speak the language. So maybe, maybe you have to monitor this particular person going to this website and monitor where they go and what to do. So you can use artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, and it's being done, yeah. But it also has a role to play in enforcing consumer rights, all right? From the point of transparency, all right? What does this look like? Well, right now, not so big in Barbados is the fact that a lot of international companies, I like to use Amazon because, hey, it's Amazon. But these guys collect a lot of information on you. As a Barbadian, there's something called the Barbados Data Privacy Act, but in the States, in California, there's California Data Privacy Act too. A lot of data privacy acts are being now activated. And if as a consumer you go, you know what, I've had a very, very bad experience with Amazon. I no longer want to do business with Amazon. I want them to delete me. All right. There's so much data that Amazon has on you. Being able to identify all of your data is almost unrealistic for a human to go through every email, every bit of data that they have on you, from financial to emails to customer data, and delete all this information that you're entitled to. So basically, the right to be forgotten isn't built into even our law, all right? And the right to be forgotten built into our law means that it's almost impractical for some person in the customer service department with a request by you as the customer to delete all your data. But now you can use artificial intelligence to go into these big data warehouse systems and delete and scrub your information. And that's part of a consumer or subject right that you have, where artificial intelligence can and will continue, or probably will start playing a role in ensuring that consumers have a level of control over their personal information with these large companies that process your data in very, very big volumes. And that leads to the ethical consideration for consumer rights. So there are some ethical dilemmas at play right now. So let's bring one ethical dilemma before we jump into the 2 points here. Let's go back to my car again. Now, there's been, I recently wrote an article last Tuesday, so it came on Monday, on the hidden world of I guess the data grab by these companies. And one is the car. So if you have a car bought in the last maybe 2-3 years, well, so if you have a 2-3-year-old car and it has the Android or Apple Play built in, know that there is microphones in the car. Those microphones listen for your commands. those microphones also are carrying your activities in the car back to the manufacturer. There have been reported cases of people having their sexual exploits in the car being recorded by the manufacturer having those exploits. There is a consumer issue with cars in Barbados, around the world, where most people don't realize that there are microphones in the car, and those microphones are always on. I mentioned that my car sees because it has to now see the distance with the car in front of it. So there are cameras, right? Certain cameras in cars now coming out as a standard. So therefore, right, you could appreciate that you don't necessarily know where the data is going. So there are some ethical dilemmas in now how we now move forward with artificial intelligence, right? So the ethical dilemmas posed by including concerns of over privacy, which is what I'm just talking about, right? Copyright, surveillance. Copyright is another big one, because how do these systems know how to write a poem in less than a split second? It must have taken poems from somewhere for it to create a poem. Surveillance, for example, the cameras, right? And then not knowing that you're under surveillance. I think that there needs to be heightened consumer protection in terms of what consumers are entitled to. Let's deal with surveillance a little bit. You go to any business, and the Data Protection Act is for businesses and not home users. So let me say that clearly. The Data Protection Act is for businesses. When you go to a business, they have cameras following you around. One must now ask what they're using those cameras for. One could say, well, they only use the cameras for shoplifting. That is true. But would also tell you, in a post-AI world, you can link facial recognition to your purchasing decisions. So think about that for a second. You go into a supermarket, there are cameras there monitoring people. It can use facial recognition to know that Matthew Blenman is in the supermarket. Matthew Blenman is a star customer, or Matthew Blenman is known to the supermarket. And by extension, it can alert the security to follow Matthew Blenman around. The security, even though Matthew Blenman was on the compound, but the facial recognition in those security cameras has identified security, that a person on their list is there. Right? So basically, it can come down to some decision-making autonomy. So it can start making decisions on its own, right? Such as what you qualify for in terms of credit. I mentioned that before. All right. So key consumer rights affected by AI is the right to privacy. So what is happening with all privacy? I think right now, one of the bigger things that our consumer advocacy regulators need to pay attention to is the products that are being introduced into the market, right? And if businesses are aware of the rights of consumers, all right? I don't think that businesses know. Classic example, when I bought my car less than 2 years ago, the dealer did not let me know that that was a possibility that the states are now fighting with. And if you think about it, I don't have to press a button for my car to respond. It is listening to my commands. The brain of those commands aren't in the car. The brains of those commands, verbal commands, I should say. Let me be clear on something. Verbal commands. So when I said, well, directions to give me directions, I do this a lot of the time. So I said, give me directions to, for example, Harrison Cave. I want me to say, Stephen, well, you know to get to Harrison Cave? Yes, I do. But what Barbadians don't realize as well is that Google tracks everybody in Barbados that has a mobile phone. That's how it knows where traffic has been backed up and automatically routes my destination for me to give me the time to get where I need to go. So when I have to go to a meeting, I know to get there perfectly, but I want to know if there's an accident on the road. I want to know if the road is clear and I would get there on time, because it predicts down to the minute if I'm going to be on time for my meeting. That's how I drive now. I don't have to type it on the phone. I just issue a verbal command. But I also know that I give up some of my privacy. But I was not told that by the dealer. I expect the average person not to be me. Concerning knowing privacy rights and concerning knowing what they're entitled to, the right to be informed about how your data may be used. I will give a freebie to the FTC and anyone from the corporate side here. There is a function within Zoom right now that allows you to do transcription. Do you think that that system is being transcribed on your computer or on servers somewhere else? If you have private, confidential meetings using Zoom and use that transcription function, know fully well that that is being transcribed on some server that you have no control over. And by so doing, you have to be deadly sure that whatever information is on that server, you don't mind getting into the public, because there's no guarantee that server will not be hacked. All right. So I know we went off tangent a little bit, but that was just for the people in the audience that I know who are here. Right. But getting back on track, right? Right not to be discriminated against by autonomous decisions, by automated decisions. Classic example, courts as in the merchandiser courts. Not a local company, but an international brand. International brands are driven by one thing, profit, because they got to bring home the money. So you could now imagine using a system that would determine if you are creditworthy or not. And a lot of the time, they want to take some of the decision power out of the humans because they feel that humans are fallible. Meaning that, you might give credit to a friend that, shouldn't get it, but you feel for them, and all of a sudden the friend put you in trouble, and management from overseas may say, you know what? We're going to tap into the local credit rating agency. And once you tap into that agency, the decision is made for you. All you can do as the credit officer is say yes or no. And it would have nothing to do with that credit officer being able to approve something, because when they go in the system to try to lend you or override it, you got to talk to somebody in another country. That sounds far-fetched, but I will tell you right now, out of the horror stories that I'm hearing out of what's happening with how decisions are being made within corporate Barbados, where a lot of decisions are made in another country, and that sometimes our own people are just babysitters. You can see now where this is going, where systems would start to eventually make decisions automatically so, and there may be some policy, consumer-driven policy, that may state that our citizens must have the right to not have these decisions automatically made for them. And it may not even be just the citizen, because you see, the average citizen might not even know it's automated. They were just here to get turned down. And they may not even know why they get turned down, because somebody 10 years ago or 30 or 25 years ago had a tip out from Chubby's. Remember Chubby's? And you got some bad credit that following your own because you can return the tip because Chubby's on the business, right? But on the credit rating system that they back 25, 30 years ago, you return that tip. So obviously you got bad credit. I would bet anybody in this audience tonight that they don't know their credit score. I don't know mine. But I will tell anybody in this audience tonight that you do have a credit score. Every person in this audience, if you've gotten anything from a bank or a courts, a Massey, has a credit score. But this right to be informed, I'm sticking here, I'm stuck here. Because part of consumerism, like any product, take for example, if I buy a pants or shirt, oh shoot, I'm not aware of the time. Oh there, sorry about that. All right, I'm coming home now. All right. If I buy a pants or shirt, or I buy a device, I have the right to know if it's defective. Right? I have a right to know how decisions are being made about me. Just like I have a right to know if this shirt made with some very nasty dye that got in mercury or something like that. Where the consumerism comes in is that a consumer might not know because maybe they're following the trends in India to know that this shirt comes from India, blah, blah, blah. The consumers, that should not be consumers' burden. Should not be consumers' burden. Yes, consumers have a right to be self-informed and to keep up to date, but these things cannot be the consumer's burden. Businesses should bear the burden because they're the ones bringing the product. So from the car dealer, bringing cars now that can brake on their own and that record my conversation in the car, going kind of back to the dealer, whether it be Hyundai, Honda, whatever, Kia, whatever, there must be a burden placed on the business of bringing these digital products. So protecting consumers in Barbados with a Data Privacy Act. So the essence of the act is to basically safeguard people's data against misuse. Right? And part of that is also to be informed as well. You cannot protect yourself if you don't know what your rights are. And there's certain rights, we're not getting to data privacy rights because that's not what this presentation is about. But it's ensure that individuals' privacy rights are respected in the digital age. That's the fundamental ethos of the Data Privacy Act. Right? Consumer rights under the Data Privacy Act includes being able to be informed about the data collected on you and used, sometimes weaponized against you. Right? The right to access and correct personal data that may be incorrect, and a right for data portability and erasure. So what data portability is, sometimes doctors get in their feelings and they don't want to give you your patient files, and then they give you patient files in some big reams of paper. No. Under the Data Privacy Act, you have the right to have your data in something like PDF that is very portable. So if you're traveling in an emergency situation, or you want to go from one doctor to another doctor because you want a second opinion, you have the right to have your data portable, and you have the right to have that data erased, right? If you so desire, once it does not contravene any legal action. So take, for example, I may want my data erased by the doctor, but if I get a bullet wound, and all bullet wounds must be reported to the police. Yeah, I want my data erased. How'd you patch me up? I'll erase my data. All the information got me erase it. No. The law states that, so they still have to operate within certain gambits of the law. It's not a real day example, but that's just what comes to mind for some stupid reason. But yeah, so you have the right to have your data erased, but also within the confines of the law that is set upon. Right? A role in consumer trust and mitigation, right? Compliance with data privacy builds consumer trust. So yeah, so you want organizations to start building a data privacy program, right, to help ensure their digital services. And sometimes, unfortunately, businesses might not even know that they're offering their digital services. My car dealer just didn't realize that they're offering digital services. This is thought they were selling me a car. And sometimes the organizations and the commercial enterprises don't even know that they're offering digital services. But they took their time to very well impress me with all the fancy things it can do. But with great power comes great responsibility. And that great power is the car has all these fancy features. But what are the pros and cons of these features should be told to customers, right? A critical factor for business success in the digital economy. It is a critical success factor for business in the digital economy because you cannot have a good customer that's not informed. Therefore, this further enhancement to tools and measures mandated by the DPA, such as data encryption, secure data processing practices that protect consumer data. Yes. So, what a lot of businesses don't realize, especially doctors, I hammer at courts. You can hear some themes coming up. I hammer at courts, doctors, lawyers to some extent, masses, and I forget one. Because they have large volumes of data on people. They're the ones that should be encrypting their data to make sure that if they get hacked, when they get hacked, it's not if, but it's when. There's a saying in cybersecurity, it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when you get hacked. That if anybody get into their systems, all they would have gotten is a bunch of encrypted data that they can't use, right? And they should probably looking at securing their processing practices, because at the end of the day, it's just not only about data being exposed, but ensuring that staff behave in an appropriate way to ensure that they don't divulge data either intentionally or unintentionally. All right. So future of consumerism, I think, yeah, this is the last slide, basically. All right. We can look at more predictive personalization. So start being able to actually look at all that data and predict your purchasing pattern to realize, hey, every every month around this certain time, you go to Massy or you go to this particular location and you do X, Y, Z. And therefore, by the time you get there, they say, hey, John, how are you doing? He's like, how are you doing coming in today? Because the system is tracking you. All right. And you can see a little bit of that in e-commerce where you go onto a site, and it says, hey, we have these recommendations for you, Stephen. Not quite, that example is not quite for e-commerce AI, but what is more AI or narrow AI, as we discussed earlier, is the fact that if you use, for example, Netflix has an AI engine that makes recommendations based on all of the movies you've watched. And it keeps making that and refining that process based on if you tell it thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever, and it starts to learn what type of movies to recommend to you to keep you hooked on that little Netflix wheel. Right? AI automated customer support. We see, I can tell people right now, there's gonna come a day where you're looking for the AI to sound like a robot, but I can tell you right now, you can train a robot on a Barbadian voice, and it's not even a Barbadian. I plan to do it. I plan to train my voice. I'm doing a podcast, and instead of me reading the podcast, I can just type up my articles and use my AI voice to sound like me. I can do that right now. Actually, that's what I'm coming up with in a week or two. All right. So you wouldn't even know the body sounds completely Bayesian as a robot. John, right? John A. Robot sounds completely Bayesian. Because one of the bugbears of Barbadians right now is that when you go and you call your customer department, you're probably gonna hear a trainee voice. Bugs Bayesians to no end. But I can tell you in 2 to 3 years' time, you can start hearing some Barbadians again, or somewhat sound like Barbadians, but it might not be Barbadians. All right. Augmented shopping experiences continue a development that deepens things like augmented reality and virtual reality. Yes. So there was a video that I was recently watching concerning if smart glasses, meaning that glass that you go to your optician and they recommend a pair of glasses. Maybe in 5 years' time, they'll be recommending augmented reality prescriptions for you, right? Those augmented reality glasses, for people right now, especially senior citizens, I see a lot of senior citizens confused walking around Sheraton. They can't get out, for them, navigating Sheraton Mall is a very stressful thing. But maybe there's a citizen that won't mind seeing on their glasses, turn left here, turn right there, walk 50 yards. And for them, navigating difficult spaces or even, walking around town would now become something that they're more comfortable with if they're comfortable with that level of technology. That also has implications for things such as, enhanced consumer purchasing, because when you're there looking at 2 products in your hand, brand X costs 10, well, brand Y costs, 50. You can now look at each product and you can start in far distance in your lenses, you can start seeing the comparison between the two based on the product. So why one costs 10, well, the other one costs 50. So once AI starts to learn the deep level of information data sets are out there, you can now start seeing a lot of these person's recommendations suited to who you are based on your purchasing power and spending. So, not quite AI in consumerism, but you can see where consumerism is going to eventually be interacting with robots in your home. That little demonstration with the egg there, we are we are at the embryonic stage of that. I remember my first iteration with the internet when I was 19 years old. My first time I ever went on the internet, I was 18 or 19 years old. And all it was a little crappy picture of Domino's. Y'all guess I licked my belly, right? But I went to Domino's. I don't know why the first website we ever went to was Domino's Pizza at 19 years old. I'm 50 now. But you can see how websites have transformed concerning that first stage. These are the first stage robots. And that was a Tesla bot in their factory walking next to the Tesla truck. And that's real. So that's not artificially generated. That's actually a real robot, the Gen 2. And they have big expectations for Gen 3. And the other robots right now that is beating that, but that's the most polished video that I can find that only was a minute. But anyway, before I wrap up, I normally do this little exercise with people to ask them which picture is real. All right. So before we wrap up, and we can come home now. Yeah. And my presentation is only an hour and a half with questions. So anyone wants to care to look at these three pictures and let me know which one is real. Anybody want to guess? A, B, or C? Which is a real picture here? Anyone?
I would say
I would say
You would
B.
say B?
yes.
B. Anyone else? So we have two votes.
I
We
would
have
say
two
A.
people voting for B. You would
I
say
would say
A is a
none.
real picture? You would say, somebody
think
said
A.
none. Interesting. Right. So I have 2 for B, 1 for A. What else we got? Going once, going
C.
twice. Pardon me?
C.
I didn't hear that. Sorry. Say it again.
C.
C. And you'll be correct. The only real picture here is C. I did these pictures. I did this. I did this picture here with artificial intelligence. As I said, I call Leonardo AI that created these 2 pictures to the left. So this girl. So my thing was, I said, what was my prompt again? My prompt was young, athletic Barbadian, right? And that's the picture I was created for that. The other one I said something like, family at the beach, and that one was created. And this was the only one that was actually real. So yeah. So that's where we are with artificial intelligence. We can't even tell definitively anymore with any certainty that if what we're seeing is real or not. Right? So that's my little presentation, guys. I hope you found it enjoyable. I would normally extend, opportunity to ask questions about the subject so people can basically, tell any mental loose ends that they may have because of what they heard. So any questions so far? Or I was clear as mud. Or if you don't want to talk, you can type the question and I would just look at the chat and see.
You have a comment in the chat from Miss Maureen Holder.
Right. The first part of the presentation was frightening is it is here and it's better to understand its benefits and navigate, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, should I go on? Had enough news for today. I want to hear more about the impact of AI and consumerism, blah, 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 blah. You need to build effective policy that suits our particular needs. Yes, correct. Right, blah, 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 blah. And sure, I shall be joining the save for Zooming, blah, blah, blah. Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Solar. But yeah, and if it seemed frightening, that was not my intention. My intention was to bring a level of awareness. And part of awareness is the fact that you may be shocked initially, but the idea behind the initial jolt is to say, first and foremost, a couple of things. One, AI is here. All right. Once you have your operating system, Microsoft Office, Windows 11, you have AI built into that. Right? And if you use Microsoft Office 365, it comes now with Copilot once you have updated within the last week or two. You have AI built into that. And it's now permeating through all of your apps now, well, especially email, where they ask you, can I help you write an email? Gonna probably start seeing that a little bit. So, yes, it may seem a little jolting initially, but, you begin to understand that, I want Barbadians to appreciate the fact that the world has turned another corner. When we got the internet, what we know as the internet, in the late 80s, early 90s, the world turned a corner. All right. And when we got social media 20 years ago, the world turned a corner. So this is the third major corner turn. So the first was the internet for technology, as we know it. Second was social media, because if you think about it, the first iteration of development in modern technology was all of the world's computer systems connected. So laptops, phones, blah, 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 the interconnected internet, as we call it. But then it was controlled by corporations, meaning the corporations were the only ones that were pushing messages to the public. So websites, and then people who build websites on behalf of companies or products. Then social media came, and then it became citizen empowerment. So the first one was corporate empowerment. So where the little business guy that was making shoes somewhere in some small country that had a unique style of making shoes can go on the internet and promote their products. And then consumers now could find these new little niche areas to exploit and to learn and know about the world, as we had an awakening to the world being smaller. The next turning point was social media, where it was not about corporations and the message anymore, but it's now the individual having as an influential soapbox, as a CNN. Actually, I will risk to say that the CNN has lost its influence, because the individual now, and even the nation, the different media, are seeing the impact of the individual now, right? Bringing the news and shaping the community conversation. Now, the other corner that's being turned is artificial intelligence now, where articles and pictures and video, I can now do a whole, by prompting and typing on a screen, I can do a whole minute video with no filming involved. Tyler Perry definitively or indefinitely shut down an $800 million expansion of his studios when he saw that you can now type in certain words and create a movie scene, create a full movie by just typing a few words. So the world has turned another corner. And where we go from here as a Barbadian community is to understand what state we want in that world, and to understand that, well, it has concerns. If we fear it, it's going to eventually beat us out of fear. I don't want that for us. So I want to thank, if there are no questions, I just want to thank the FTC for allowing me to actually make such a presentation to you. It was my privilege. I hope there are questions, because this is a very, very powerful topic. If there are no questions, thanks. What was it, FTC? Derek? 8 o'clock to the dot.
Yes, good night, everyone. I'm very certain that each and every one of you enjoyed tonight's presentation. And I'm just here to let you all know that I'm here with a profound sense of gratitude and appreciation as we bring this enlightening webinar to a close. On behalf of the Fair Trading Commission and as a representative of the Consumer Protection Department, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this event possible. First and foremost, we thank you, Mr. Stephen Williams, an expert in his field, and he's also a current commissioner of the FTC as well. I would also like to express our gratitude to all the participants who are here and have actively engaged with us, whether it was in discussion or you posed insightful questions. You indeed contributed to the overall success of this webinar. And a special word of thanks goes out to the Fair Trading Commission. To everyone, I wish you a wonderful good night. And as you have learned a little bit more of artificial intelligence. I hope that you look around in your world and you see where it is. We thank you and do enjoy the remainder of your night.
Good night.
Good night.